When I'm driving an F1 car, steering wheel feedback is one of the most important things. It helps me decide when to brake and how hard. It's how I feel the surface of the road. Every bump in the terrain, every wheel slip. If my tyres are starting to lose grip, I can sense that immediately. When I'm driving in a sim, I need that same tactility, that level of detail I have in a real car.
Racing games have come a long way in the last 20 years. Nothing's really changed in how we approach force feedback in all that time. Cutting-edge sims are now so realistic, drivers across all disciplines are using them for training. Our main goal when designing True Force was to improve the number of sensations that you actually feel, to put you better in contact with the car that you're driving so that you can improve your performance and that enjoyment of driving on a track. The physical feedback needs to be more immediate or accurate, or a player loses immersion or control.
Game developers are still having to recreate their force feedback from a set library of effects instead of deriving it from real-time modelling.
True Force is special because it levels the playing field for PC and console gamers. You're now getting the extra level of precision and detail that you need, regardless of which platform is your choice. This is not just iteration, it's total evolution. True Force force feedback works differently. It hooks directly into the physics engine of the game. Games already calculate the forces on the tyres and the steering wheel. The True Force algorithm is able to process this data at up to 4,000 times a second. It will even use the game's audio engine and pass it directly on to the driver.
We spend a lot of time as audio designers trying to make each car sound unique and as realistic as we possibly can. Being able to integrate the audio into the force feedback is something that we've wanted to do for a long time, and True Force enables us to do that. And the ability to send the audio to the wheel, to have it respond and vibrate with the loss of traction, really increases my ability to give that immersion to the player.
You can sense the changing surface of the road. You'll be able to feel if the back end of the car is losing grip.
The first time we had it running in the build, I could feel the wheel humming and vibrating as we revved the engine. Our immediate reaction was, it really adds another level of immersion.
The first thing you're going to feel with a True Force wheel is the engine note. The minute the engine starts in the game, you will know exactly which car you are driving. True Force is the beginning of something new. This is now the foundation for all wheels that we'll produce in the future. This extra level of information gives everyone all the information they need to learn how to control their car better. True Force benefits any racing fan looking for a more realistic driving experience.
Because winning is all about feeling.
It's motorsport, but not as you know it. Test yourself and your everyday road car. Safe, affordable, but most of all, fun. And all you need is your daily driver. Experience the thrill of a sprint day. Race against the clock at a hill climb. Or test your reflexes with an auto test. It takes just 3 simple steps to get started. Get on the start line. Search Motorsport Australia Daily Driver today.
And a very good evening and welcome to round number 8 of the Logitech G Pro Invitational Supercars E-Series. The season of endurance is upon us. It's the Sandown 500, the first of our twin driver endurance races tonight. I'm Lockie Mansell. Joining me in the commentary box tonight for the first time in season 2023. It's a very good evening to Scott Rankin. Scott, welcome into the commentary box for the first of our endurance races.
Yeah, mate, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. I was actually just talking. I'm actually off town to enjoy myself at, I think it's the Shannon Speed Series next weekend, TCR Australia, and production cars from Sandown next weekend. But before that, we get to throw some roaring V8s around here, Lockie. I mean, this is just such a place that's culturally inbuilt in us. I miss this place during the COVID period. I miss coming here for Enduros. It's going to be such a sad day when we finally lose this from the real world racing categories. It's just a lovely, lovely track that evokes high horsepower, fun, curb smashing, all the things that a V8 supercar loves.
Indeed. In fact, I'll probably see you at Sandown next weekend because, in fact, I'm there for the next 2 consecutive weekends. I'll be there for the Speed Series next weekend, and then I'll be there the following weekend for the real-life Sandown 500 as well. But you're right, it's a circuit that is absolutely steeped in history. It has the distinction of having held the Sandown 500 for many, many years, and it's a circuit where if you're going to set your car up with an emphasis on any particular handling characteristic, it really is about power down to make sure that you get good drive out of the slow corners that lead onto the long straights, particularly turn 4, which leads onto the long back straight, and also the final corner, which leads you back onto the main straight heading down past pit lane.
Already, Lockie, have a look at the background of that shot, though. There was already some vying for qualifying position. Drivers obviously want clear air on the nose nice and early. It's a big one. You definitely do want to tow on some of the straights here. Downforce isn't a huge factor tonight. It is about that straight line capability. Very, very difficult to get a pass done. So I think qualifying here is right up there in terms of importance in the overall scope of things. And this is 45 to 23 in terms of the championship out for the qualifying laps at the moment. I'll tell you what, mate, excitement levels, I think they're through the roof.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point that you make there. So we're running a split qualifying format this weekend where the field will be divided into upper and lower 50% based on the championship points coming into this round. Speaking of the championship points, let's just cover off where things sit in terms of our championship standings. And it's James Scott who leads the way on 1,065 points. He's just 9 points ahead of Madison Down on 1,056. And then you've got the very consistent Ethan Grigalt sitting 3rd in the point standings on 1,009 points. Unbelievable, isn't it? We've completed 6 rounds so far, and we've got the top 3 drivers separated by just 56 points.
Yeah, there's nothing in it, and you know, look at one spot further back, and Andrew Gillian, what a breakout win it was. And then just in behind him, you've got Brady Myers. And to me, Brady qualified, had out-and-out pace at that previous round at Detroit Belle, but he just couldn't get it done in the races. So I think he probably feels there was probably something left on the table to Detroit Belle for him, definitely. I think there was a lot more points he's capable of. What's he capable of here tonight? Well, we'll find out on overall pace in about 15 minutes time. But in the meantime, these drivers already cracking onto it, and eyes on Jordan Ross. Good exit off the final corner. What's the lap time's going to be like when they trundle through?
So this will give us our first real indication of what the outright pace is like, and it's 106.2 for Jordan Ross, a 6.3 for Brad Rafu. And Luke Rosella now goes to the top with a 1:06.0, so the times are going to keep tumbling as Marcello Rivera now goes fastest of all ahead of Job Stewart. So Rivera on the first round of flying laps fastest, but as we've become accustomed to all season, ridiculously tight margins between our top contenders. And in this first half of the session, Scott, it's really all about still making sure that you do the best lap time that you can, so that once the faster 50% of the field comes out for the second segment of qualifying, you're going to be as far up the grid as possible.
Yeah, and already there's 2 dead heats in terms of qualifying times. One of them's for second place at the moment, so that one's going back to a count back on that 4th decimal place, but it's 106.072s for the 35 and the 55. So Stuart and Rosella at the top. You have a little bit look of a deeper look through the field. The 938, the first of the 95 SimSport cars, the 938 entry, which is back in 8th spot at the moment. So that's Ratsu, and then the 9th place car as well as the 79 machine. Both of them did a 106.316, and there's only 3/10 between the top end of the field and 10th place at the moment. And I get the feeling this was always on the cards, and we should expect this to be on the cards. It's going to be one run, get the tyres on. One run, bolt some tyres on. One lap, bolt the tyres on.
Exactly right, because the tyres are only at their optimum performance for one flying lap, and that's been the pattern that we've seen right throughout season 2023. Right now, all of the primary drivers are in the cars, of course, but this race we throw in the extra element of everybody having a co-driver, and the rules in the Logitech G Supercars Pro Invitational E-Series, just like the real life Repco Supercars Championship, that you're not allowed to have 2 regular drivers sharing a car, so they must have part-time co-drivers slotting in alongside them, so everybody has to entrust somebody else with their car, and in the cases of our title contenders, their championship hopes as well. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because we've got some pretty high-profile drivers from both the sim racing and real-life worlds sharing the cars with our series regulars this evening, and I'm talking about names like Triple Supercars champion Shane Van Gisbergen, Anton De Pasquale's in the field tonight, so too Andre Heimgartner, a couple of stars from the Super 2 series in the form of Cooper Murray and Brad Vaughan we will be seeing behind the wheel tonight as well.
You mentioned that you sort of can't share cars between multiple main game drivers. Do you know what? Tonight, just with the way that the season's been, it's been a little bit more chaotic, I think, this season. Although that might have just been Detroit Belle Isle. There's a little bit of something extra in the water, I think, here tonight, Lockie. And when I look at the endurance season as a whole, right now, I wouldn't be wanting to put both of my main game drivers in the one car. I just think it's too much risk. If something does happen, something does go wrong, night over, championship potentially over for 2 drivers. So I actually really like this, the fact that they're all sort of split up. Yes, it also gives us a big opportunity to sort of assess what's that talent level like, what's the depth level like in terms of Australian sim sports. But big responsibility night, and for a few of these drivers that are actually in here, they don't run a lot of V8 supercars. They tend to run GT3s, maybe some more Porsche Cup, so the skill sets aren't there. It's a lot of pressure to throw on some big shoulders at the moment, so, you know, could there be some chinks, some cracks in the armour later on? We've got a long night to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, a case in point there would be somebody like Bo Albert, who's been super successful in other forms of sim racing on an international scale, but hasn't had a massive amount of experience in a supercar. So for someone like him, he's being thrown right in the deep end. And in the case of the real-life drivers, obviously they've got the actual real-life Sandown 500 coming up in a couple of weeks, so it'll be good preparation for them in that regard as well. Just one other bit of housekeeping to cover off before we get too far into the intensity of qualifying is that one driver who will not be on the grid tonight is Jared Filsell, and that's because he has been suspended for 2 races. He had a suspended suspension, if that expression makes sense, hanging over his head prior to the previous round of the championship at Belle Isle, but because he collided with the driver at Belle Isle, that suspension then came into effect. He appealed it, the appeal was unsuccessful, and so unfortunately for Jared Filsell, the reigning Pro Invitational Series champion, he will now have to sit out both Sandown and Bathurst.
Yeah, so that's frustrating. I mean, we just talked about it, you know, big points on offer, and critically, I think, double points as well for the endurance season. For Filsell, that means a transition back to the relegation zone effectively. He'll have to qualify himself back in next year, and he'll have a lot of time out, sitting around, watching, thinking about it. Sometimes that's actually a good thing. Gives you a good opportunity to step back and go, yeah, I do want to be out there. And that can really fire a driver up. The thing for me, for Filsell, I want to see him respond. I want to see that fire. Take it to a new level. Take a few weeks off. You've got to deal with it, right? Get settled in. It'll be interesting to see what he was like when he returns. But in the meantime, outlaps coming through once again, and those standings are starting to get shaken up. The first of the 5s here, Lockie.
Indeed, so the lap time's now starting to come down. Also want to say a very good evening to our audience joining us on Speed Cafe this evening for the first time. The Supercars Invitational A Series being broadcast on Speed Cafe, renowned as one of the leading motorsport news websites in Australia. So great to have the company of our audience on Speed Cafe. So updating the times at the moment, we are 9 minutes into the first segment of qualifying for the Sandown 500, and it's Luke Rosella with 105.9 who is fastest at the moment, ahead of Hayden Veld. Marcello Rivera sitting in position 3, back to Job Stewart. Then it's Richard Hampstead, Jordan Ross, Brian Borg, Brad Rattu, the next one in position 8, Kurt Stenberg 9th, and Rehan Leonage, the youngest driver in the Supercars A Series, rounding out the top 10.
Imagine how he's feeling at the moment as well. You know, at the back end of the top 10, you've got one more qualifying attempt before. Whoa, here comes the games. Everyone's vying for a little bit of track position now. Obviously looking to look after their tyres, keep the heat out of them as much as possible. And is Rosella looking for a tyre? No one's going past him. Somebody's about to pull the trigger here. This is Formula 1-esque, Loxy, and we're not even through to the race yet.